We have a fantastic live music group at UK Music that represents everyone, including things you'd have heard of, like the Music Venues Trust, and everyone there from the sort of super beasts of Live Nation right down to, you know, the independent festivals and the grassroots venues that are absolutely critical for the success of the whole industry.
Brilliant, thank you very much for that. So everything's kind of rosy in the garden as far as that goes, relatively speaking. We heard earlier on from John Kampfner at the Creative Industries Federation, talking about his concerns and red lines around Brexit. He spoke very eloquently about those. Now that was kind of the helicopter view of the wider creative industry, so I wanted to zoom in a little bit specifically on the music industry, and you know, what are your key concerns and what's the sort of dialogue at the moment around it, Michael? What are the key things, the key conversations at the moment?
Well, Brexit is something that is undoubtedly going to dominate the political world for another year and a half. You can see that already. If you know, you kind of sometimes block or mute people on Twitter. I used to do it quite a lot, less so now. But if I could, some days, if I could just get rid of anyone using the word Brexit, it'd make my timeline so much easier to manage and be so much less tedious than it is at the moment. I mean, it dominates absolutely everything. We have good relations across government with ministers, with officials who are working on the policy challenge of Brexit for the people we represent, but also it's a cross-party issue, so we've got very good connections across all different parties in Parliament at the moment. In terms of the issues for us, really, the first is something that's the same for every single other part of the economy and every single other industry, and that is the uncertainty around Brexit. And I think the uncertainty in terms of what the economic impact is going to be. We've had the referendum, the public made their decision. I campaigned personally for Remain. The constituency that I used to represent in Parliament voted overwhelmingly for Brexit, which was kind of slightly counterintuitive thing for a politician to do, and you kind of knowingly going against your voters. But I felt at the time that for the people that I represented and for the rest of the country, that Brexit would be very bad for the country, and we made those arguments. Now, in terms of the economic impact, we don't know. There are people who say, well, the country become poorer. If it does and the economy suffers, then obviously that will have an impact on our industry, just like any other. So it's in that sort of wider context. But also we have some very specific issues and challenges associated with Brexit. The first, which you'll all be familiar with, is around the free movement of people. So the ability of EU workers to be able to come here and work in the UK, but also the ability for people in the UK to go and work across the EU without all the kind of cumbersome visas and costs and bureaucracies that we have elsewhere in the world. So for touring artists and musicians, but also their crews, that's a huge deal. And it isn't kind of sort of the sort of super rich category A artists who will go and do a huge European tour. We're talking about people who are maybe going over to Belgium to do one heavy metal gig and coming straight back, or a band that may do a couple of gigs in Paris and then go over to Germany and then go to Belgium and then come back. Often people on very, very low margins, and there's a real danger that will make that kind of touring just unviable because of the increased cost and bureaucracy. So the first issue really is about visa arrangements. Can we get a system in place for when Brexit is over and we come out of the EU, that we've called it a touring passport, so that you could make sure that people can come into the country and that artists can tour abroad. But also there's the wider issue about equipment. So everything from getting, the bulk of your equipment or very expensive instruments and the insurance associated with that, or health and safety issues about testing of equipment that you bring at the moment, comparatively easy to do that across the EU. So again, we're calling for a system of carnets, really, that make sure that you can you won't see those duties and taxes and costs and bureaucracy put on bands that want to tour, and also to make sure that bands can keep coming into the UK as well. So they're two very, very specific issues with Brexit. In terms of for the rest of the music industry, copyright, all our copyright protection at the moment is through the EU, so we need to make sure that the protections that we currently have through the EU are transposed into law in the UK. And I also think it's an opportunity to strengthen the law here in the UK so that we get further protections on intellectual property, so that we're giving more value to creators and investors who we need, who we rely on to sustain, as I said, what is an incredibly lucrative industry for the UK.
That's good to hear that there is some opportunity in there amidst the all of the issues we're going to have to deal with. Just to switch to you, Christof, obviously you represent festival organisers from across the rest of Europe, effectively. Perhaps you want to tell us a little bit more about Europe, and what's your view really from that perspective of the complications that Brexit could create? Have your members got views and comments on that at the moment?
I think it's really early. I mean, everybody, I think, in our association was quite shocked when the result was clear, because we were hoping that Britain will remain in the EU. I think we talk about Europe. Europe was a peace project as well. It's about stability. And we have plenty of other examples that the EU was weakened, of course, with that Brexit. It even got worse. I think some of the issues are practical. I think, when I go to an agent as a Swiss promoter, they always told me, Switzerland in traveling for UK bands is the pain, because you need the carnets, etc., even though we have a lot of contracts with them, with the EU. But I think that is something which will be hard for certain smaller bands, especially if they want to tour Europe. I hope there will be some solutions. On the other hand, I understand the EU that they need a bit of toughness right now. Otherwise, I think they're really on this position to be weakened again and again. But I think, our association, our members, I think the dialogue with Britain and with our colleagues here, I mean, it's one of the biggest music markets, was always very intense. But it was like always in certain topics for our association, not too easy to gain members for festivals, members, etc. from the UK. It was always like a kind of a planet on its own.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's interesting to hear. And certainly, I mean, the colony system, people kind of groan at the idea of going through that, actually, although it might be one of the only options when it comes to this. So just to change the subject slightly, I want to talk a little bit about your Take a Stand campaign. Tell us the basic ideas behind the campaign, and why did you start it? Was it the current political climate? And just walk us through it, because it's something that we'd like all AIF members and everyone in the room to support and to go away and think about today. So
I think about 2 years ago, there was a lot of changes in Europe happening. I mean, there was the financial crisis, we had the refugee crisis, the whole political landscape changed to more of a right-wing, in a right-wing direction. We had the terrorist attacks, which also affected a lot of the festivals, of course. At that point, we were trying to create, as an association, festivals that are more safe. So we did everything with our Yes group about that. We have nowadays very sustainable festivals. We offer food for vegans and vegetarians, but what we missed at that point, and that was the end of 2015, was like, do we have a responsibility towards the youth, our customers, in our societies? We reach millions and millions of people with our festivals, and I think the early days of festivals was about revolution, really with a message to fight a system as well. And I think a lot of the festivals lost that over the years and were more and more commercial. That's a fact. But still, I think if you talk to a lot of festival promoters, they do it out of passion, and that was the starting point. We created a mission statement about our role, how we see ourselves. And from that point on, in 2016, we were hoping that the EU will do a music program, because they certainly found out that the festivals are an important glue between youth and cultures in between to make Europe stronger. Unfortunately, that failed in the budget committee in 2016, and that was kind of the starting point for us to say we need to do something anyway. We need to address to our youth that they should go and vote, speak up, tolerate, respect, show solidarity, create a movement for our audience to be active. And Take a Stand is a very simple initiative. Basically, we created this one without any fundings. We have a website. We have a lot of templates available. Festivals, companies can sign up very easily and then promote Take a Stand at their festival, at their club, at their company. We started in March. We launched this in March. We already have a dozen associations, European Forum of Worldwide Music Festival, Live DMA, a lot of associations who joined forces. We have over 70 festivals already signed up, festivals like Roskilde, like Lollapalooza. We have even agencies like the Coda Agency who joined us, and the number is rising really heavily. And all these festivals and companies showed their support and promoted Take a Stand at their events this summer. I think we have a short clip, some of the festivals, that's the next one. Which basically is a template, and a lot of the festivals use that on a screen between the shows. Every festival decides on their own what they can do, how they want to do it. Some of them would like to do it more in a political, active way. Some of them just want to make a statement. We had a lot of festivals who asked their artists to make a statement on stage or do a photo for Take a Stand. Basically, it's these are the key words, basically. We wanted to create something where festivals, clubs, and people can join in, and then they have to do something about it. It's a low-level campaign. We don't do any kind of political decisions. The reason why is that we have a lot of festivals, especially already in the eastern part of Europe. They were able to join this, but if it's too concrete, basically they have to decide on their own how far they can go, because the landscape really changed.
Yes, absolutely. So it's intentionally in those broad strokes. It's a kind of template or a banner under which people can do various forms of activity.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that. I mean, I just want to go on to talk a little bit about festivals and political activism, really, because I was at an event recently and someone shouted out that, it was disgusting that Glastonbury had Jeremy Corbyn speak, and, the festival should affiliate themselves in any way with political causes. And I just thought, hold on a minute, let's go back to the beginning. Beginning of Glastonbury festivals in the UK, and as you've already touched upon, they're kind of countercultural. They were inherently political, whether you agreed with the politics or not, and left-wing causes, whether it was supporting CND or whatever it was. There's always been that intrinsic element to festivals. What are your views, Michael, on it? Should festivals be offering more than entertainment and escapism? I know that we didn't mention it in your intro, but you're actually connected to a festival in Barnsley, aren't you? That's right. Yeah, live in Barnsley. What's your view on the sort of role of festivals as a vehicle for making that sort of statement?
Well, as a Labour MP, I used to only have to go to the Labour Party conference, which I used to try and get it down to a couple of days. And then this year, having thought I'd left politics, we have to talk to all the parties, so I suddenly found myself going to the Lib Dem conference, the Conservative Party conference. So for about 3 weeks, all I did was go to party political conferences. I mentioned before that 30.9 million people attended festivals last year. There were definitely not 3.9 million people at party political conferences last year. So I think if festivals turned into some sort of party political jamboree, I think they probably find it's less of a draw than some of their previous headline acts. But that you said, there's always been a link with activism. I actually think, in truth, it's probably I think when they do, I mean, look, it's up to an individual festival. Glastonbury wants to invite Jeremy Corbyn. That's their business. But I think what festivals have the ability to do is really to back good causes in a broader sense than, say, party political causes. So they may be everything from really big, important campaigns like anti-racism, or about, can we do more to make sure that we've got better access for disabled people. I think those kinds of issues are really, really important. And at a local level, you mentioned my involvement in Live in Barnsley. So I'm patron of Live in Barnsley, which is a metropolitan festival that was set up 5 years ago, and I helped to establish. And that has 160 acts, I think 18 venues, basically pubs and clubs in the town centre. That does incredibly good work. So around 50% of the artists, the acts, the bands that they have are all local. And by that, not Yorkshire or South Yorkshire, but actually Barnsley. So the opportunity that it affords young people in the area is a really good thing. They don't make any money. It's a not-for-profit organisation, and so any money they do raise during the course of the day, they sort of break even about early afternoon when they sell the last t-shirt, and after that they go around with the buckets and every single penny goes to a local charity. So I think festivals at different levels have such a powerful opportunity to do good things and to champion their communities as well as big issues. But I'm not sure that sort of party political kind of route is the way forward for them.
How did the Tory Glastonbury go?
I didn't make Tory Glastonbury. I didn't make the other Glastonbury either. Although I seem to be about the only person. I'd only just started a week before, which was a bit of a dumb thing to do because I started and everyone knew it was at Glastonbury. So I wasn't at Glastonbury to join in with the Jeremy Corbyn singing, but maybe the year after next.
Well, it was rather ill-advised, wasn't it? I guess the Tories looked at that and thought, we need to create our own, we need to manufacture our own moment. But I would say the Tory Glastonbury already exists without naming any names. I would say there's probably several of them, really. But anyway, moving on. We're not, we're in a neutral place here. I mean, we've been talking to, you mentioned, and a lot of these campaigns don't necessarily have to be in broad strokes and big important issues. We've been talking to Love Music Hate Racism recently because they're having to ramp up their activities because what they're seeing is that far-right groups have got significantly smarter than they were in terms of their messaging, and they're starting to kind of infiltrate soft spaces like sport and music. And so I think it's really important that we work together to counteract things like that. So we're having those sorts of conversations. And for example, earlier this year around the general election, a number of festivals in the southwest, which we support this campaign. It was just a campaign to get young people to vote. It wasn't partisan. It wasn't saying vote, whatever your political beliefs are, but just to try and get younger people engaged with politics. And the reach that those festivals have on social media, etc., just can't be underestimated. So I think it should be used as a positive platform. Ultimately, you're right, Michael. It's the prerogative of the organizer, as with programming talent or whatever. It's up to them. But do you think we're going to see more of this sort of political activism across Europe, Christof? Are you seeing it elsewhere?
Probably not with a big, important politician on stage. Not everybody would do that, and I think Glastonbury has a different history on that. But I think things are changing right now. We have a lot of panels, a lot of discussions within our membership that festivals, at least, if they haven't done so, they really discuss this internally as well. What kind of role do they play? Should they be political or not? For our festival, for instance, we're going to do a discussion round as well at the festival with our audience. We want to know, what you expect from us. Do we have a role of responsibility for you, or do you just, would like to have some fun at the festival? I think a lot of festivals nowadays really discuss this, and already that dialogue is really, really good, I think, because I think nowadays we should have an opinion about certain issues. But of course, the spectrum, how far you want to go, That's within the responsibility of each festival promoter.
Can I just make, one very quick point in addition to that? We started off by talking about Brexit. I think one of the sort of saddest things about the kind of tone of the debate during the referendum, but also in the months and months afterwards, and that is, whether we were in favour of it or not, Brexit really has divided the country. And I think that is such a shame, and I think as a country, we've got to find ways of bringing ourselves back together. And if you look at some of the challenges, we've had the referendum in Scotland, we've had 2 general elections. If you look in the UK, the rise of anti-Semitism, look at recent reports, and it isn't just on the far right of politics, it's also on the far left of politics. The growing number in terms of incidents of Islamophobia as well. These are all issues really that divide our country, seek to divide our society, and there are people who want to prey on that. And I think one of the things that music has, the power that music has, is its ability to bring people together. And I think, the fact that we have, we're so good at it in this country, we're part of a kind of world community in terms of music. I think it's such a strength in the UK, and those festivals, when you see those big audiences, coming together for music, if we can get more diversity in those audiences and really, unite every different part of our community, I think music and festivals can really be a power and a force for good.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great way of summing it up, and it's more important now than ever. I'm worried about what you said about the UK always seeming like its own little bubble, really. I think we have to do some work there, get on board, support your campaign now more than ever. With the country kind of backsliding in various ways, it's important that our industry remains a progressive sort of space, and with festival organisers from across the world in the room, I think that's more important than ever. I'm very conscious of time, and we're overrunning slightly. No one's jumped in with a question, surprise, surprise, but I'm sure you've all been sat there percolating your thoughts. So yeah, we've got time for a couple if you've got, one for Michael or Christof, or just generally for the panel. We've got a roving mic. Yes, we have a hand up over there.
Chris, do you think that Let's Take a Stand may be a bit strong for the UK at this present stage with the other side of politics that we see in our nation that says, well, it's one legs our flag and being very that side of it? Do you think it may be a little bit too strong for the UK market? Do you think it's something that's right? The other side of politics, I think we're all talking about, we don't want to see it. But do you think that may be just up their street to say, well, let's get together and make a stand?
Difficult to say. I think it's, what we get, we have so many good feedbacks from all around Europe, even worldwide festivals who've joined us. I think it's a good statement. We need to be clear on that. It needs to be, it's also, it's not like, it has a clear signal in terms of colors, but I think it's important to basically go out and tell the people. I think it's not too strong.
I know, I only ask you that. I see it from the other side with the flags that will go up outside houses and all that kind of stuff. I just have my own piece of mind.
Okay, thanks for that. Any more questions? Probably got time for one or two little snappy ones. Any hands up? It's difficult. I've got blinding light on my face, so I can't actually see any of you. If not, any final comments from the panel?
Well, if somebody's interested in joining, you can either go to the website. I have some cards here as well. It's really simple. All the templates, everything is available for free of use for if a festival would like to join the campaign. It doesn't cost anything. We tried really low budget, but it's a lot of enthusiasm with a lot of people working on this topic.
Great, thank you. Michael?
I mentioned at the beginning our report that highlighted the contribution that music makes in terms of our economy, but of course we mustn't lose sight of the wider contribution that music makes in terms of, to our individual well-being and our strength as a community and as a country, the huge positive cultural benefits that we have. The overall picture is pretty good in terms of the contribution the growing nature, particularly of live music, but there's a lot of work we need to do now to protect that, nurture it, ensure that it grows for the future. So we're running lots of campaigns, whether it's against cuts to music in schools, or about the help that we need to give grassroots venues. You know, there's huge issues, whether it's to do with business rates or planning changes, agent for change, all of these, the huge issues. We've seen 35% of grassroots music venues close in the last 10 years. That's something that's a huge problem and a worry for us, and is storing up trouble for the future. Where will the next generation of talent that play the very big festivals and stadia, where will they get their chance and their start to hone their craft and learn their trade? And so we've got huge issues, and of course protecting artists and creators as well. There are massive issues that we face. So overall, real strong success story, but our message is very clearly that if we want to continue to be a success in the future, which we do, then we've got to work very, very hard to protect that, nurture it, and ensure that we can keep growing in the future.
Call to action. You could go into politics one day, you know? Okay. Well, thank you very much to Christof and Michael. Interesting discussion. I appreciate it was a bit brief and we had to just skim over the surface of the topics. But yeah, thank you for coming. I think it's critical for us to get that wider view from outside of the festival and events world as well. So thank you both.